Hello everybody, welcome back to Sophisticakes by Mary. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made this glitter and gold sugar sheet two-tiered cake. And to decorate this cake, I made some rice paper sails that I added some gorgeous pink to, and a little bit of glitter. So if this sounds interesting, stick around, we'll get right to it. And of course, we're going to start with, as usual, our decorations so that they have time to dry and set up and firm up. And for this decoration, I am using some rice paper, or otherwise known as egg roll wrappers or wonton wrappers. I think they're the same thing. No, I think rice paper, egg roll wrappers is different than wonton wrappers. But look for rice paper. And what I did is I cut some sheets in half and I cut some in quarters so I could get some different sizes. And all I'm using is I'm just brushing on plain water, just regular water. And I'm just trying to saturate these pieces of, I'm going to continually say wafer paper when I mean rice paper. I interchange those because I use them so much. But this is rice paper. And make sure you saturate both sides. And you can see it's kind of curling up as it goes. And that just means you need to move a little quickly so that it doesn't roll up on itself and stick to itself and give you a big problem later. But you don't have to worry about being real specific about this as long as you're getting them saturated, because we're going to shape them. So don't worry too much about that. And then I just added a little bit of pink to the water in this bowl. That's just water and pink food coloring. And I'm just brushing that on the where it's going to attach to the cake. I wanted it to have the pink on the inside instead of the outside of these sails. And I'm just pick them up and shape them the way you want. And I kind of use my fingers to add some pleating to it. You kind of let it drape over your fingertips and then lay it down gently, and try to keep your fingers kind of spread out a little bit so that it's not conforming to itself too much, because this stuff is sticky. It's so sticky. And then I just stuck in some floral wire on the very ends there to use those in case I need something to help me stick them into the cake and get them to stay. And this silicone mat, I will add a link in the description box. Sometimes these silicone mats will kind of stick to their surface on their own, and you don't have to add anything to add motion to your papers as they are drying. Some of them worked, that one worked and this one didn't. So I just added a little rolled up pieces of foil underneath, because you're gonna need to let that dry. And I had let it dry a little bit until it was just tacky, and then added some of these clear sugar crystals towards the bottom again, just for a little added extra bling so that it would kind of blend in with your sugar sheets. And I let those dry overnight. You could dry them in your oven on your lowest setting. Just kind of watch the timing. You don't want them dry so much that they crack, but they need to dry to a state of rigidity. So, and then once they get to that point, then crack your oven door with a wooden spoon. Turn off the oven, crack your oven door, and let it cool more that way. Otherwise, they can crack if they come to room temp too fast. And there, I'm just using my hair dryer to help speed up the process a little bit. And then I decided to go with just leaving them overnight since I had time, but you can use your dryer. And all I did there for the sugar sheets, that is just a combination of the sugar crystals, some regular granulated sugar, and some clear corn syrup. You can also use glucose, but I didn't have that, and corn syrup can be substituted in this situation. The glucose will just give you a kind of a firmer, it'll dry a little bit more rigid. I did wrestle with a little bit, but in a pinch, this works. And I will leave the entire recipe in the description box for that as well. Now, all I did here was I took a piece of parchment paper that was the same width as the diameter of the cake, and I left it, I didn't cut it down, I folded it in half, because that just kind of helps me keep the sugar sheet in the parchment while I'm rolling it out. It kind of gives you automatically a straight edge if you have that folded edge. And just kind of work with it, spread it out until you get a fairly even layer of the sugar crystals. Now I would the sugar sheet, I would leave that aside to sit and firm up, especially if you use the corn syrup. Oh gosh, you could leave it up to an hour, really, even longer. it just helps in the transfer. Because if you try to lift it up and transfer it onto your cake right away before it has actually dried to the point where it will hold its own shape when you lift it up, then it's going to fall apart as you lift it onto the cake. So just leave it. Just plan ahead and do that in the earlier stages of the decorating game here, so that it's ready when you're ready for it. And then I'm not explaining exactly what I'm doing here just because I've done this so many times, but basically I am just putting a good coat of buttercream, American buttercream, which of course I will leave the link to, and I will probably leave a little iCard on here for that recipe because I do have a tutorial on that. Yeah, just do a good coating of your buttercream and get it as smooth as you can. Worry more about the top, since that's what is going to show, than the bottom, because you're going to cover the rest with the sugar sheet. And I just brushed on a little bit of corn syrup onto the chilled buttercream because I put it in the refrigerator and chilled it. Because when you lift up your sugar sheet like that, to get it to stick, I find if you are putting a decorative medium around your cake and you want it to stick, that when it comes to things like this, it sticks better if you use something that's sticky that's in the piece that the panel that you're lifting on. Since I used corn syrup in the sugar sheet, I added corn syrup onto the cake to get it to stick. It's just a little helpful hint there. Sometimes that works better. And now we're just making our gold paint, which is just gold luster dust mixed with some Everclear is what I prefer, but there are other things you can use. You can use vodka, you can use lemon extract. There's quite a few ways you can do it, but I like the Everclear personally. I find you get a better coverage with one coat with the Everclear, and you just want to mix it to a painting consistency. Don't make it too thin, because then you will have to do 2 coats, which if you do, no big deal. You just let it dry, go back and do it again. And don't leave it too thick, otherwise it's going to be clumpy. There's a kind of happy medium, and you'll find it as you work with it. And I'm just brushing it along my edge of my sugar sheet, just to emphasize that there's an uneven textured edge there, and so you can see the difference between the buttercream and the sugar sheet. In person, you can see that the sugar sheet is very glittery. It's hard to catch that on film, but it's very glittery and shiny and sparkly. Now, I'm not showing you how I'm doing both tiers, but both tiers were done exactly the same. And to add a little bit of color, last minute thought was I wanted to add a little bit of pink on the very bottom edge of both of the tiers, just to add another touch of another color and to tie in those sails. And that is just that same pink tinted water that I used on those petals. I had some extra and I just used it on the bottom. I just brushed it on. I just kind of rubbed it in a little bit. You don't want it to be, if your color that you have left over is darker, just add more water. You don't want to, unless that's the look you're going for. I wanted it subtle, kind of a blush rose coming up from the bottom. But if you want it more concentrated, leave it. But if it's too concentrated, just go ahead and add some more water. Now, I had stuck both tiers in the refrigerator for a good half hour just to firm up so they're easier to stack. And then I used some bubble tea straws as my support, cut them all to the same length. And then since that top tier had chilled, I was able to just lift it on top with no problem. Plus that sugar sheet helps. It gives you a little bit of something you can touch that's not just the buttercream. But if your buttercream is firm and set up, you can transfer it on to the other cake very easily. Now I'm just adding my rice paper sails. You can do these in any pattern that you want to. I just liked this design. I felt like just the flare off to the sides there just adds an extra touch. So there you go, guys. My glittery, sparkly sugar sheet cake with some golden pink accents, actually. I hope you like what you saw, and if you did, please like it, share it, subscribe, and send me any pictures on Instagram that you might try yourself. So thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch my video. And if you'd like to watch some other videos, go ahead and click on the link to one of these other videos shown here. And if you would like to check out my other social media, I am on Facebook and Instagram under the same name, Sophisticakes by Mary. And please take the time to share, like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload another video. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next tutorial.